progeny Ahlul Bayt, especially the Imam of our time. And may Allah hasten in his reappearance and help us to be among his true awaiters and followers. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه وحبيبه حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين الهداة المهديين سيما بقية الله في السماوات والأراضين. قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن الكريم وأقم الصلاة طرفي النهار وزلفا من الليل إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات ذلك الذكرى للذاكرين صدق الله العلي العظيم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with His mercy and forgive our misconducts, our mistakes and our sins, and help us to live the life of servitude and obedience and taqwa with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It's an honor to be here once again with my dear brothers and sisters at Masjid Al-Nabi, and may Allah inshallah make the journey of Honorable Sayyid Radhawiyan's journey inshallah to be safe, and soon we will have him back. And for the time being, inshallah Allah give me the tawfiq to do the best I can to inshallah fill this, I'm pretty sure, big shoes, not literally, figuratively, and do my best inshallah to return the Saturday night program back to him inshallah, for him and his continuous success and tawfiqat, and his family and their safe return. Recite another salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam Ali alayhi salam asked his companions, asked the Muslims of the time, which verse in the Quran is the most hopeful verse of the Quran? Which ayah of the Quran give us this optimism, this sense of hope? And everyone around him quoted a different verse. One of them quoted the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says, Ya ibad alladhina asrafu ala anfusihim la taqnatu min rahmatillah. O servants of God, the one that you wasted the gift of life and the resources and the blessings of Allah. In other words, those of you that you wronged yourselves and committed sins, do not lose your hope in Allah's mercy. Inna Allah yaghfiru dhunuba jami'a. Indeed, Allah forgive all sins. Very hopeful verse. Someone else quoted another ayah. Again, I want to keep it short because it's a bit late. But Imam alayhi salam said, I heard from the Prophet of God that he said the most hopeful verse in the Quran is Surah Hud, verse 114. The ayah that I begin my speech with. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ طَرَفَيِ النَّهَارِ. Maintain your prayers at the two ends of the day, referring to Subh and Maghrib. It's not covering all the salat, but in the narration it has been said that it's referring to the beginning of the day and evening. So Fajr and Maghrib. وَزُلَفًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ, and early hours of the night, again referring to the Isha salat. إِنَّ الْحَسَنَاتِ يُذْهِبْنَ السَّيِّئَاتِ. Indeed, good deeds efface misdeeds. Indeed, good deeds replaces, wash away the misdeeds. ذَلِكَ ذِكْرًا لِلذَّاكِرِينَ. This is a reminder for the mindful. This is an admonition for the mindful. And Prophet said that indeed every time a believer, when they perform wudu and they stand in prayers and salat, this is like washing themselves in a well. And with that salat and prayer, they are cleansing themselves and their soul from sin and from disobediences that they committed, and they have this new beginning. So this is the most hopeful verse. The topic that I will be discussing this week and inshallah also next week, because I want you to be as awake as possible. Again, I see some hands are already in a position of ready for the nap. Especially this is a position for the nap. Please keep it there. I'm not trying to disturb you, but I want you to inshallah be alert as much as possible. That's why I keep tonight as short as possible. I'm going to time my lecture to be relatively. If those of you are familiar with my lectures, when I say relatively, it means still is going to be a bit, but it's not going to be an hour long, so it's less. Inshallah, for all of us to give me your next 15 minutes to 20 minutes, let's recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The topic that I chose and basically selected for this week and the coming week is the importance of change and transformation. Because it happens that as a human being, sometimes we get used to the way we are. We live the way we are. It becomes our habit to do things, adah. And it's very difficult to break the cycle sometimes. And we say, it is what it is. And especially when we start reading some self-growth book and we hear some lectures or snippets of words here and there, say, I'm byproduct of the nature and the nurture. My family raised me this way. My genetic did this to me. And the more and more we look at them, is just kind of take away this ability to change. But what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and the words of the Prophet is communicating with us is that the choice is yours. Inna hadaynahu as-sabil imma shakiran wa imma kafura. Allah said, I will show you the way. The prophets of God come to guide us. The choice is ours to do the change, to make the change, to accept it, to be grateful and appreciate it, or to turn away and ignore it. That is our call. And that means those decisions, we can call them micro and macro decisions every day. It makes us who we are. We are the result of those decisions. Those decisions change us for sure. So from our perspective, what are some method or some ways that we can transform spiritually for the better, obviously? And once we know how to get better, we will know the opposite as well, that what are some ways that will pave the way to make us even worse than what we were. This famous narration narrated from multiple ma'asumin, including from Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, Man sawa yawma fahuwa maghboon. Imam said, an individual that 2 days of their lives are identical, are the same, this person is in great loss. Meaning that there is no positive change. They're idle. In other words, they're okay with the things are without growing. That person is maghboon. So now just imagine if somebody's second day, somebody's future is worse than their present, or somebody's today is worse than their past. This person is worse than maghboon. This is not just loss anymore. This person is losing precious assets that they have and blessings that they have. And this is a dua highly recommended to do it if you want in your salat, or you can do it in any time you remember. Especially nowadays in Akhir Zaman and end of time, more than ever, is that people change sometimes for the worst. We are living at the time of occultation of the Imam, As we say in Dua al-Iftitah in month of Ramadan, right? Allahumma inna nashku ilayka faqda nabiyyina. Ya Allah, we plead to you that we don't have our Prophet with us. Wa ghaybata waliyina, an occultation of your wali, of your guardian. Wa kathrata aduwina, an abundance of opposition and enemies. Wa qillata adadina, and a small number, minorities. These are all challenging. So at this time that is very difficult and challenging, make this dua. رَبَّنَا لَا تُزِغْ قُلُوبَنَا بَعْدَ إِذْ هَدَيْتَنَا, from the Quran. Ya Allah, do not deviate our hearts once we discovered the truth and hidayat. Do not let our heart to go toward deviance. وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً. Not that because you owe us anything, we are constantly owing you. Do it because of your mercy. وَهَبْ لَنَا مِن لَدُنْكَ رَحْمَةً. On your mercy, not that we deserve it, not that we're entitled, that we're asking you for your mercy. إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْوَهَّابُ. And thus we have the narration from our sixth Imam alayhi salam. He said that at the end of time, آخر الزمان, which is we are our time, recite dua al-ghariq. Recite the prayer of the one who's drowning. Ghariq is a drowning man. And is a dua that is kind of asking Allah to save us at challenging time. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Muqallib al-Qulub, Thabbit Qalbi ala Dinik. This is known as Dua al-Ghariq from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. O Allah, O the most merciful, O the most compassionate, O the one that you transform the heart. Ya, O transformer of the hearts, Thabbit qulubana ala dinik. Make our hearts to be firm and on your way. Deen means the way, the path. Ya Allah, help us to be firm, stand firm in your way. That's why the topic is this. Muqallib al-qulub, right? Transformation, change for the better. What are some ways to transform? How can we maintain good changes, positive changes? And I want to discuss tonight just one point. And that one point is change happen, number one, when we find it necessary. If somebody are okay with the way they are, they will never do any effort to make a change. If I am okay with the way I am, why should I change? And I've noticed for many people, that's the greatest obstacle. Right? I talk to couples who have issues, and the worst and the most difficult time for me is to talk to people that one side is willing, they want that conversation, the other side doesn't want to. It's a very difficult way to move forward. Because one person says something, the other side who's here just because they were asked to be there. And when you listen to both sides in order to be as fair and as just as possible, then you want to tell them that, okay, I think these are some input that I have. These are some feedback that I have. This is what you can do to change, to improve. And that one of the side, either wife or the husband, and I've seen both. It's not about gender, it's not about, men and women, it's about human being, depending on how they are. Some, what they say is simply this, that I think I'm good. Simply means all you just said I heard, but I think I'm happy with the way things are. I don't think anything is wrong with me. If she's not happy, she should change. If he is not happy, he should change, right? And when I say, okay, I get it, but you involve the third party, and the third party is telling you that apparently this is not just differences of personality or expectation, is actually what you do is wrong. I try to be as objective and not as strict and give you unnecessary feedback. Apparently what you do is wrong. It's a big problem. Said, I've heard this before. The thing is, and then they have their own explanation. So in order to make the change possible, transformation, is that we need to understand the importance of change. And that doesn't happen if I don't know who I am. Man arafa nafsah. The one who is aware of who they are, arafa rabbah. They will know their creator. And if I don't know who I am delusional, that I think I'm a perfect person. How many single people that I talk to that they think, alhamdulillah, they are the perfect candidate for marriage, is not that there are the others, there's no good person out there. Everybody, majority, I would say, not everybody, majority think that way, is on others. And in our teachings, especially when it comes to a spiritual transformation and change, the first step is to know who you are and be as honest as you can with yourself. Don't be delusional. There is one thing that people think of me, there's another that I know who I am. I exactly know what I am capable of, what I actually accomplish, what are my issues, what are my weaknesses. I know everything. As long as I recognize that I need to have that self-introspection, to look within and find who I am, to acknowledge to my weaknesses. And that brings us to the next step. Okay, now I acknowledge I have these issues. Then what should I do? I acknowledge that I have these problems and I need to change. I have bad habits, I have bad hobbies. What can I do? To just say I'm a bad person, I'm an evil. No, it's not the point. That's the first step. And then the second step is the moment of tafakkur. Is a moment of reflection. يَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. They reflect on the creation of the heaven and earth and their own creation, that, okay, what's the purpose of my existence? Why am I here for? What's the meaning of my existence? And from that comes the process of change. These are the parts that is very internal. There's no pragmatic step yet, but they're necessary. We need to open these knots and ties first in order to be able to move forward. So reflection is necessary. There are books actually, it's a multiple volume written by a Lebanese scholar. It's called Al-Mutahawwilun. Those that they went through this transformation, and talk about the stories of people that they had this moment of change. From those who embrace Islam, for those who start practicing their faith, from those who quit, bad habits and bad practices, and then talks about what they had in their life. What was that turning point in their lives? For some people, it was just a moment of reflection. Just reflection, thinking, that was enough. And we have many examples that, again, is out of my time to maybe inshallah next week I can give some examples that people thinking led them to change. It was the way that basically opened the door for them. And that thinking could be simply as, what's the point of my existence, right? There's, again, I don't want to promote and people change, but again, it's not that the ultimate result is something 100% good, but relatively from where they were and where they are, there's a lot of change. One of these people is Cat Stevens, was an American singer, right? And British singer. Now his name is Yusuf Islam, right? And here's a story, just read about him, his transformation. Is an incident, is a moment of reflection, and for him that was easy enough. Not easy, of course, challenging, but at the same time, convincing enough to push him to make that leap, to stop putting the fame, the money, the wealth, and everything and acknowledge. It's a big change. Same as that we look at many revert stories. It's a moment. Someone waking up in the middle of the night. Somebody getting a gift of a copy of Quran, reading a copy of Quran. Somebody watching something on YouTube or on some social media, and that was the moment of change. That's the beginning, by the way. It doesn't make it profound. It doesn't make it sustainable. It's a turning point. What happens after that is different, case to case. Some people, they have that moment, that epiphany, that moment of discovery, and then next day they are getting distracted, they go back to what happened. That happens as well. But that turning point comes from reflection, tafakkur. That's why in ayat of Quran is always said one of the major portion of Quran. When you look at the quantifying the verses of the Quran, legislation and rules, the laws of Quran are taking the least amount of space in the Quran from verses. The rules, the don'ts and should and shouldn't are not most of the Quran. The majority of the Quran are about beliefs. It's about Allah, it's about the Day of Judgment, that's a major part. And also is about how we have this discourse, this conversation of faith, what it means to believe. From encouraging us to reflect and think, to Allah saying that, okay, look at this, observe this creation, observe, look at the names of the chapters of the Quran. Right? Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Baqarah, Al Imran, Nisa, right? From the early chapters of the Quran, 3 of them, Fatiha is a very short surah, we know about that, right? Is the dua, is teaching us how to talk to Allah. Baqarah, Al Imran is about the past, is about the prophets of the past, combination of multiple stories from Adam alayhi salam to Musa, to Isa. And the arguments that Allah provided to those who rejected them, to those who turned their back on their prophet. It's about beliefs. And when we get eventually, there's some legislations, there's some rules there as well, ahkam as well. And then we come further, we have Surah Ma'idah, and then we have Surah, eventually, not in a proper order, but we have A'raf, we have Tawbah, all these chapters coming, discussing many topics, an array of topics, including Day of Judgment, including Tawheed and monotheism, and including importance of the Quran and the message of Allah. One theme that is being repeated in many of these chapters is reflect. Reflect. That إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. And the alternation of the day and night, and the creation of the heaven and the earth, there are signs for those who are intellectuals, for those who are thinkers. So thinking is a major part of change. And honestly, we're living at the time that thinking is painful. Not just now. Thinking always is not as comfortable as it is. It's actually a bit exhausting to think, right? To think is not easy. That's why, what are we occupying ourselves with? Distractions. Big TVs, mindless TV shows, phones, and what people do, whatever is on social media we watch, is because for a moment we stop thinking. Because the way of our thinking is not profound. A lot of them are stressing, is about anxiety, is about worries, is not thinking. We call them thinking and thoughts, but many of them are what? Worries. We're not trying to figure things out. Okay, what's going to happen? What if this happened? What if I lose my job? What if cryptocurrency, this happens to it? What if my investment here? What if people stop liking me? And all these worries. And we call them thinking. And that's not the term. These are we can call them khiyal, fantasies, imaginations, delusions that we may have. But the real thinking, once we learn it, is actually very enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. Our Prophet would walk in the middle of the night and look at the stars. Imam Ali alayhi salam would walk even in the last night of his life before he went to the masjid. Not the last night, maybe you can say one of the last nights of his life. He walked out from his daughter's house and he started looking at the stars, reciting ayat of the Quran about the heavens, about the sky. It's a moment of reflection that he would say, "Ma khalaqta hadha batila." Ya Allah, you didn't create all of this in falsehood, for nothing, aimlessly. There's a purpose. Ali alayhi salam is enjoying that conversation because he's thinking that, okay, I am going toward a journey. Sooner or later, I'm going to meet my Creator. But I know that everything happened to Ali alayhi salam is for a reason. None of that was pointless. If people turned their back on me, if people treated me the way they did, none of that is going to be for nothing. As all that Allah created is for a reason. There's a purpose. So thinking has a lot of actual joy. Worries doesn't have joy. Concerns doesn't have joy. And for change, we need to learn how to properly think. And one of those ways, again, I don't want it to keep it vague. How can we think properly? What are some ways that we can train our cognition, our way of thinking, to think properly rather than being distracted by worries and concerns? Actually think properly. The first step is always ask this question. Why am I here? Purpose. Who brought me here? These are questions that puzzled philosophers for millennials. We're not the first one to ask that question. We will not be the last. But once the more we think about this, that my existence has a purpose. I'm not a mere coincidence in the universe. There is a reason for my existence. There is a purpose for my existence. Then the story is very different. That is the proper thinking. Once you kind of get a grasp on that, when we get the understanding of that, then everything is start to fall in its place. It makes sense. My suffering, my pain, my discomfort, everything has a purpose. Otherwise, I will refer to everything as what? If I don't understand why am I here, who brought me here, if I go through a discomfort and pain, what would we call it? What do we call that? Luck. Luck, right? I'm not lucky. Why am again, I've heard it from many young people. Why I'm so unlucky? Why this happened to me? Because everything is mere coincidence. My existence doesn't have a purpose. I'm just here because I am. It is what it is, right? So if there is an inconvenience in my life, why me? When Imam al-Hussein goes through all that, he never says, why me? You don't hear that from the words of the prophets of God, why me? Why? Because that answer was already provided by their reflection, by their faith, that I am here because I was chosen. MashaAllah. Recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. She got it. The intuition is there that is about her. Alhamdulillah. So, that would be, I would say, I'm going to wrap it up and conclude here. That reflection need to be trained. Like everything else, we learn how to do it. Thinking also need a proper training. Because we live at the time that everything is labeled as thinking, but is not. It's not. It's not that if somebody's worries about their bills and about their job security and all that, this is what Allah said, في خلق السماوات يتفكرون في خلق. This is not يتفكرون في خلق السماوات. This is being worried about survival, which is necessary. I'm not saying you should not care about your job. I'm not trying to, in any way or shape and form, take the importance of that away, but do not mistaken that for reflection. Reflection is our bigger question, more fundamental questions. That why am I here for? What's the purpose? Let's finish with a hadith from the commander of the faithful, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam. The teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam give us a lot of elaboration, proper understanding of the ayat of the Quran. And this is one of the examples. Imam alayhi salam says, this is from the end of Nahj al-Balagha, which is the collection of the sayings of the Imam Ali alayhi salam, known as the words of wisdom or hikmah. of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So Imam says, إن أولياء الله هم الذين نظروا إلى باطن الدنيا إذا نظر الناس إلى ظاهرها. So the difference between the one that we call awliya Allah, those who are referred to as lovers of Allah, friends of Allah, those who are close, intimate with Allah in relationship and connection they have with Him. They are the ones that look at the inward side of the world, when others look at the outward side. When people are mesmerized by the beauties of this world, they look much deeper to it. At what is this about, as I said. So what is the thinking? The zahir, the outward part is my house, my car, my body, take care of everything, maintain it, which is necessary. But more importantly is that what is the real deal about all of this? وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ. What Quran says? What is the real deal of dunya? Quran said, what is this dunya and this life? Except la'ib. What does la'ib mean? Again, those of you who've been watching World Cup, you know the word la'ib hopefully by now. Game. What is it? It's a game. It's a play. What's the second word? Lahu. What is lahu? Distraction. Amusement. This is it. You take it too seriously. This is all that dunya is. And awliya Allah get it. When Ali alayhi salam is asked, he said, I will not exchange the entire world and dunya if they ask me to take away a grain from an insect, to do injustice to an insect. He understands the real inside part of the dunya. If he ask one of us, I will take away one grain, I get the entire dunya, and then I give him all the grains of the world. Sometimes we think about these stories and say, if I was in his place, if I was there, I would have done it differently. People tell me, yes, I know that this is haram. I know buying lottery tickets are haram. But if I buy and if I win, I'm going to give it all for a good cause. And my piece of advice to them is, please, the money you're going to give to buy it, use that money, that the actual real money that it is, rather than probability of a win that you may have. إذا نظر الناس إلى ظاهرها واشتغلوا بآجلها إذا اشتغل الناس بعاجلها. Imam says, awliya Allah, they busy themselves with the remoter benefit while others busy themselves in immediate benefit. Awliya Allah are long-term planners. They think about long-term. They look at what is this life about, while others are focusing on short-term. Be happy, enjoy yourself. This is all it's about. Life is short, just do whatever you like. That's the opposite of awliya Allah. For awliya Allah, they look, okay, I'm going to live how many years? 50 years? 60 years? More? Less? What is it about? What I'm going to accomplish with it? If I eat this kind of cuisine, which again, mashallah, a lot of our young people love cuisines, and I respect that. Sometimes I sit with them and I listen to them for 20 minutes. They talk about this burger. They describe the texture and the quality of the amount of ratio of fat versus meat. And good for them. They have that passion. But the reality is, and I'm not saying this is haram or forbidden or judging them in a negative way, but awliya Allah, young people are at that level, inshallah, eventually they're going to grow spiritually. But awliya Allah come to the point that said, I ate this food, it's going to cost this much, it's going to be provided this much, or I have a different one. Eventually, I will be full. If you're very hungry, especially in Ramadan, and you had a loaf of bread, just bread, once you're full, if they brought you anything, you're full. So what's the real deal of this food and that house and that car? Is reflection needed to get to that conclusion. See, rich people, wealthy people, again, there's another phenomena called old money versus new money. If you don't know what it is, good for you. Unfortunately, I know. It means that those who've been born into wealth, or they've been wealth for generations, versus those who just became rich. And then they talk about that those who are old rich or old money, they don't try to prove to others that they're wealthy. They don't buy flashy stuff. They don't buy brands. They don't carry logos. They don't need to. On the other hand, the new money usually, they could have exception, but usually they do that because they want to prove that they made it. Awliya Allah, they're the old G's, the real deal. They don't need to prove anything. They know the dunya for what it is. They recognize it for what it is. And I think I'm going to stop here. It's a bit longer. You can look at it yourself. It has three more sentences. Is hikmah number 432 of Nahjul Balagha. And if you want to get to dunya well and do a proper tafakkur of dunya, Nahjul Balagha. Of course, Quran is the source, takes us, but Quran usually, as I said, is a book that gives us guidelines. Details, mostly in Quran, are encouragement of reflection. Details are provided by Prophet. That's why we have Sunnah of the Prophet, right? Details are provided by Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So read the Quran. Quran says do tafakkur. Get to know the dunya. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَعِبٌ وَلَهْوٌ. Okay, what is this la'ib and lahv? Imam Ali dissected for you. Imam Ali opened it up for you. He said, okay, come with me. Let me hold your hand and let me introduce you what dunya is. What is it really about? Read Nahjul Balagha as a complement, of course, to Quran. As a, I would say, supplement to Quran. Quran is the main source. And then the brother, the one who's a supplement, is Nahjul Balagha. And that will push us to think like Ali alayhi salam. Which as a result of that, change will become possible. Transformation will be possible. We ask you, Ya Allah, by the honor of the Prophet, by the one that he was the one who was the remedy for the hearts. He was the one who transformed the world. Just look at the world before Prophet and after Prophet. The society, how Prophet transformed it in a short amount of time. By the honor of the great Messenger of Allah, Ya Allah, help us to have a heart that is inclined toward you. A heart that is in love with you. A love that is filled with joy and pleasure of your obedience. And Ya Allah, make our hearts to be void and empty of pleasure of sin and your disobedience, inshaAllah. For the honor of Imam of our time, and once again for ta'jeel and hastening in his reappearance, please recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.